The proposal didn't come with flowers or a ring. It came with dust on his boots, a crease of worry between his brows, and a voice that sounded like it had practiced honesty because it didn't know any other way. "I need a mother for my sons," the rich cowboy said, standing just outside the small wooden schoolhouse. "And you need a home." Clara Wells froze with a stack of worn readers pressed to her chest. The bell rope swayed slightly in the breeze behind her, and the echo of children's laughter still lingered in the room. She had stayed late to straighten desks, to delay returning to the narrow rented room that smelled of chalk and loneliness. She hadn't expected this. She looked at him carefully. Daniel Hartman. Everyone knew the name. Hartman Ranch spread across the plains like a kingdom, its fences running so far they seemed to disappear into the horizon. Men twice his age sought his approval. Women whispered his name like a dream they weren't meant to have. Yet here he stood, hat in his hands, eyes steady but unsure. Behind him were two boys, no older than 8 and 10. The taller one tried to stand straight, chin lifted like he was determined to be brave. The younger clung to his brother's sleeve, half hidden, peeking out at Clara with eyes too serious for a child. Clara's throat tightened. "I'm not for sale," she said quietly. Daniel nodded immediately, as if he'd expected the words. "I wouldn't insult you by asking." Silence stretched between them, thick and awkward. Clara could hear the creak of the schoolhouse boards beneath her feet, the distant low of cattle carried on the wind. This town had a way of watching women closely, measuring them, deciding their worth without ever asking. "I lost my husband 2 years ago," she said, more to steady herself than to explain. "I don't intend to replace him with convenience." Daniel's gaze didn't waver, nor should you. He glanced back at the boys, then returned his eyes to her. "My wife died 3 winters ago. Fever. Took her fast." His jaw tightened. The boys remember her laugh more than her face now. "I don't want them growing up thinking women only come and go." The younger boy shifted, his fingers tightening around his brother's coat. Clara noticed the way he flinched when the wind rattled the doorframe. "You could hire someone," Clara said. "I did," Daniel replied. 3 times. None stayed. They cleaned the house but never learned the boys' fears. Never sat with them when they woke screaming. Clara felt something twist painfully in her chest. She had seen that look before, in children who acted older than they were because no one had time to be gentle. "And why me?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. "Just a fraction. Because you stay late to help children who struggle. Because when a child cries, you kneel instead of shouting. Because you lost someone and didn't harden." The words landed softly, but they shook her. No one had described her that way since her husband died. The town mostly saw a widow who should be grateful for scraps of work and quiet corners. "I won't pretend this is love," Daniel continued. "It's an offer of shelter, respect, and time. If love grows, it grows honest." Clara exhaled slowly. The schoolhouse felt suddenly too small. "What about the town?" she asked. "They'll talk." "They already do," he said simply. "Let them." She looked again at the boys. The older one met her gaze this time, his eyes filled with something dangerously close to hope. The younger looked away, as if hope hurt too much to hold. Clara's fingers trembled around her books. "I need time," she said. Daniel nodded immediately, relief flickering across his face. "Take all you need." He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth," he added, "you wouldn't be moving into a stranger's house. You'd be shaping a home." As they walked away, the boys glanced back. The younger one lifted his hand in a small, shy wave. Clara stood in the doorway long after they were gone, heart pounding, mind spinning. She had buried the idea of belonging alongside her husband. Yet now, standing in the dust and fading sunlight, she wondered if grief didn't have to mean emptiness forever. That night, alone in her room, she stared at the ceiling and whispered into the dark, unsure whether she was afraid of saying yes, or of turning down the one place she might finally matter again. Clara arrived at Hartman Ranch under a sky the color of pale steel, clouds stretched thin like they were holding their breath. The wagon wheels crunched along the long drive, and with every turn, the schoolhouse, the town, and the small rented room she had called home slipped farther behind her. She told herself she was only visiting, only seeing for herself what kind of place Daniel Hartman had offered. Still, her heart beat like she was crossing a line that could not be uncrossed. The ranch house rose from the land with quiet strength. It wasn't grand in the way town folk imagined wealth. No gilded rails or marble steps. Just wide porches, sturdy beams, and windows placed to catch the morning sun. It looked built to endure. Daniel helped her down from the wagon, careful not to rush her. "You can take the west room," he said. "It's closer to the schulbook shelves I set up for the boys." She paused. "You prepared already for a possibility," he answered gently. Inside, the house smelled faintly of wood smoke and soap. It was clean, but not warm. The kind of clean that came from necessity, not comfort. Clara noticed little things. Boots lined neatly by the door, 2 tin cups instead of 3 on the shelf, a woman's sewing basket tucked under a table like it had been forgotten rather than put away. The boys hovered near the doorway, uncertain. The older one squared his shoulders. "I'm Samuel," he said. "That's Eli." Eli peeked out, then nodded solemnly. "It's nice to meet you," Clara said, lowering herself to their level. "I'm Clara." They didn't smile, but they didn't retreat either. That felt like a victory. The first night was restless. The wind howled across the plains, rattling the shutters, and Clara lay awake listening to the sounds of a house she didn't yet belong to. Somewhere down the hall, a door creaked open. Soft footsteps padded across the floor. A small hand tapped hesitantly at her door. "Miss Clara." Eli's whisper trembled. She opened the door and found both boys standing there, eyes wide with fear. "The wind sounds like wolves," Samuel said, trying to sound brave. Clara knelt. "Then we'll listen together until it passes." She led them to the sitting room and lit a lamp. They curled up on either side of her while she read from one of the storybooks she'd brought. As her voice steadied, their breathing slowed. When she glanced up, she saw Daniel standing in the doorway, watching like a man afraid to interrupt something sacred. The next days settled into a quiet rhythm. Clara helped the boys with their lessons, taught them sums at the kitchen table, and read aloud in the evenings. She didn't reorganize the house or change routines without asking. Slowly, the tension eased. But outside the ranch gates, the town sharpened its teeth. When Clara rode in for supplies, conversations hushed. She felt eyes follow her, felt words forming before they were spoken. At the mercantile, a woman she'd once shared tea with leaned closer to another and whispered loudly enough for Clara to hear. Already moved in, the woman said. Didn't take long. Clara kept her chin high and said nothing. That night, Daniel noticed the tightness in her shoulders. They said, something, he said. Yes, she answered, but I'm still here. He nodded. Good. One evening, a storm rolled in suddenly. Thunder cracked so loud the windows shook. Eli woke screaming, his cries cutting through the house. Daniel rushed to him but froze at the door, helpless as the boy thrashed, caught in a nightmare. Clara was there before she realized she'd moved. She gathered Eli into her arms, murmuring softly, rocking him as the storm raged. Samuel watched from the bed, fear slowly melting into relief. I've got you, Clara whispered. You're safe. When Eli finally slept, his small fingers still clutching her sleeve, Daniel stood silently beside them, his eyes shining in the lamplight. I never asked you to carry this, he said quietly later, as she tucked the blanket around the boy. You didn't have to, she replied. That night, as Clara lay awake again, the house felt different. Less empty, less afraid, and for the first time since her husband died, she wondered if love might not begin with romance, but with choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. The storm passed by morning, leaving the ranch wrapped in a fragile stillness. Sunlight crept through the clouds and spilled across the land, turning wet grass into silver. Clara stood at the kitchen window, watching steam rise from the fields, feeling something inside her settle. The house no longer felt like a place she was borrowing time in. It felt like it was waiting. The boys came in quietly, as if afraid to break the peace. Samuel carried a small bundle of sticks for the fire, pride written across his face. Eli followed close behind, glancing at Clara as though to make sure she was still there. Daniel entered last, his presence filling the room without effort. He poured coffee into 3 cups, then hesitated before reaching for a 4th. He looked at Clara, questioning without words. She nodded. That small moment, so simple, tightened her throat. Later that day, Clara rode into town alone. She wanted to finish this choice with clear eyes. The looks came quickly, sharper now, as if her silence had been mistaken for weakness. A man outside the saloon muttered something about easy comfort. Someone else laughed. Clara stopped. She turned, facing them fully, her voice calm but steady. I am where I'm wanted, she said. That's more than I can say for most people. The laughter died. She mounted her horse and rode away, hands trembling, but not with shame. With resolve. That evening, she found Daniel repairing a fence near the pasture. The boys chased each other nearby, their laughter bright against the fading light. I went to town, she said. He didn't look up. How bad was it? Bad enough, she answered. But I'm done running from whispers. Daniel straightened slowly. I won't let them hurt you. She met his gaze. I don't need protection. I need partnership. He nodded once, deeply. Then we speak the same language. As the sun sank low, they sat on the porch steps. The boys leaned against Clara without thinking, as if she had always been there. Daniel watched them, something unspoken moving behind his eyes. I didn't bring you here to trap you, he said quietly. If you want to leave, I'll help you pack. Clara studied the horizon. And if I stay, then we do it right, he said. Not as an arrangement, as a choice. She turned to him fully then. I won't marry for safety alone, she said. I need respect. And time. You have both, he replied. As much as you need. She thought of the nights alone, the echo of loss, the careful way she had rebuilt herself piece by piece. She thought of the boy's hands in hers, of the house breathing easier with laughter in it. I'll stay, she said softly. If you'll let me build something real here. Daniel's breath left him in a slow rush. I was hoping you'd say that. The boys looked up, sensing the shift. Does that mean you'll be here tomorrow? Eli asked. And the next day, Samuel added. Clara smiled through the ache in her chest. Yes, all the tomorrows. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They simply hugged her, hard and unguarded, like children who had waited a long time to believe in something. Weeks passed. The town's whispers faded when they found nothing scandalous to cling to. Clara reopened the small schoolroom on the ranch for children who couldn't ride into town. Daniel helped build desks. The boys flourished, taller, louder, steadier. One evening, as the fire crackled and the house glowed warm against the dark, Daniel reached for Clara's hand. I didn't expect love, he admitted. I hoped for stability. She squeezed his fingers. I didn't expect either. They smiled, the kind of smile that comes from shared understanding rather than promises. The proposal came later, not urgent, not desperate. Just a quiet question spoken one night beneath a sky full of stars. This time, Clara didn't hesitate. Yes, she said, not because she needed a home, or because he needed a mother for his sons, but because together, they had already become exactly that. And this time, it felt like coming home.